Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Romantic Side of Suspense. I'm your host, Sarah Hamaker, and I'm so glad you joined me. Today I'm chatting with Jerusha Agen. She imagines danger around every corner, but this is very important, she knows God is there too. So welcome to my show.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
Thanks. And Jerusha was telling me she's a listener too, so yay, this is exciting. I haven't had a listener and an author on yet, so you're my first.
Yeah, well, I really do enjoy this show, and I was very excited the first time I saw that there was actually a podcast dedicated to Christian fiction and specifically suspense, romantic suspense, which I love to read as well as write. So
I know, right? And as my audience knows, I write romantic suspense, and I'm like, we need our own little show, and we need to really, because, us romantic suspense authors, we're just awesome. Let's just face it, we're the best.
Exactly, of course.
So I know why I love to write romantic suspense, and some of my listeners have heard me talk about that. But why do you love to write romantic suspense?
Well, I think in part it's because I like to read it. Like we just said, I love to read it. I fell in love with the genre starting with Dee Henderson's books, the O'Malley series, which are kind of iconic because they basically started our genre of romantic suspense. Prior to that, publishers didn't use that as a subgenre label. So that was really exciting because when I encountered those books, I just loved them. I really loved the blend. I had been reading a lot of romance, a lot of contemporary romance at the time, and when I discovered Dee Henderson's, though, I just loved the addition of the suspense. That was just so cool because it was blending, I guess, what turned out to be two of my favorite elements in stories that really kept me entertained and excited about the story. So, yes, I really love having both those elements in a story. So I think I fell in love with it as a reader first, and then eventually I started wanting to write romantic suspense novels myself, in part because the first books I wrote were more romance, and they were women's fiction romance, and they were published as a 3-book series called the Sisters Redeemed series. And I found that with each book I wrote in that series, I actually added more and more suspense elements, even though that wasn't technically supposed to be part of the story. So by the time I wrote the 3rd book, I'd added enough suspense to it that it could really be categorized as romantic suspense. So after that series was done, I kind of took a step back, and I realized that, since I apparently have this natural desire to add suspense and scary elements to all of my stories, I should probably switch to writing romantic suspense in the future, and that's what I did. So,
yeah. Sometimes our writing kind of tells us what to write, I think.
Right, yeah. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah, and I realized, later that why I should have been writing suspense in the first place is that it fits tendencies of my personality, because I do tend to be a fearful person, as my bio indicated, and I have a hyperactive imagination, so I'm really always imagining worst-case scenarios and danger. So I think writing romantic suspense in a way gives me a healthy channel for those tendencies as well. Instead of just freaking myself out in my daily life, I can actually put it in a book, and have more control over it and have a positive lesson come out of it as well that teaches me as well as hopefully readers in dealing with fear and danger. So,
and I also love it because I get to research all the weird things that I kind of want to know.
Yeah.
And if I just wanted to know them just because, that would be a little strange. But if I say, hey, I know this weird fact because I was researching it for a book, everyone's like, oh, okay.
Right.
Instead of just wanting to know what's it like to be buried under dirt, for example. How long can you survive?
Sort of a weird, we're kind of a special, different creature, I think, suspense writers.
Yes.
We kind of think differently, and
Although, someone had posted on Facebook about looking for, I think, a specific dress or something, and she's like, okay, Facebook or Google, I bought the dress, you can stop showing me ads for the dress. And I was just cracking up because I'm thinking some of the things that I searched for, like I needed to look for cars for someone to drive, and I wanted a specific type of car. And I don't usually go that deep, but for this I needed that. And so I'm looking and I'm thinking, yeah, they're going to be showing me all these luxury cars that I have no interest in buying, but I just spent 20 minutes drilling down on Lexus SUVs to figure out if that was the right car for this particular character. I crack up about some of the things that I look for.
I actually had that very same thing happen with the last book that I finished. I was looking for, again, the model of car that the guy would drive, which I don't usually get that, necessarily specific with cars either, because I'm not really a car person. But I was like, okay, this is important. It fits his character. And, I was searching the cars, and sure enough, they start showing me car ads. I'm like, I don't really care.
I know. I noticed, though, that they don't show me gun ads.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when you brought it up, and I'm like, because for Rising Danger, I had to research explosives a lot, and they didn't show me any ads about homemade bombs, or anything like that.
Here, get your fertilizer here.
Right.
That's probably a good thing, though. That's probably a good thing, because then the FBI would be knocking on your door, wondering where your stockpile is.
Right.
And just for the record, we are not building bombs. We are talking about characters. Okay.
Exactly. It's fiction.
It's fiction. We're making this stuff up, but we want it based a little bit in reality so that it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, I know, but it's scary how much we're followed around, and I just figured all the things I searched, I figured I'm just messing up everyone's, all the algorithms for me. So they have no idea what I really want. Because, like 70% of it is for, like, my fiction writing, and only 30% is me, but which is the real one? Which one might I actually buy?
Yeah, that's a good thing, too.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
I was especially worried. Yeah, I was especially worried about it with Rising Danger, because not only was I researching homemade explosives, but I was also researching river dams, which are protected. So as a security risk. So I was kind of like, I hope, the FBI or whoever isn't combining my, search history and looking at, oh no, is she going after the dams with explosives, which is what happens in my book, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah. No, your character is doing it, because our bad characters do bad things. This is why it's romantic suspense. So when do you find time to write? How do you fit that into your life? Because not all of us are, I'm speaking for myself, I'm not a full-time fiction writer, so I have to fit it in as well. Where do you find the time?
Yeah, thankfully I am able to write full-time, and when I started out writing full-time, I kind of railed against the idea of being bound to a rigid schedule. I wanted to kind of be, flexible with my time, to enjoy being self-employed and all that. But I actually found that being more free with my time meant I never got as much done as I should, because I ended up wasting a lot of that time. It's maybe just my personality, but I would let other things push into my writing time too much then, because I didn't have this schedule. So then I decided I need to try using a structured schedule. And I found that actually that was more freeing for me, because I was able to get more accomplished in the time I had, and it allowed me to prioritize my writing. But now things have kind of changed, because I got a puppy at Christmas time. Yes. So kind of goodbye scheduled writing time and a lot of my time completely. So now I don't have those big chunks of uninterrupted time to write that I used to have in my schedule. So now I've had to try to learn to be more flexible and become better at using those smaller bits of time that I have. So I'm learning how to brainstorm story ideas while I'm watching the puppy, and I'm even revamping my outlining process in an attempt to make it faster faster and easier to do in just snippets of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, basically I'm just trying to make progress, however and whenever I can during this busier season of puppy rearing. So, yeah, and I've gained a lot more admiration for moms with little kids who somehow manage to still get writing done while they're raising kids. And I know you're one of those moms, right? You're a mom of 4, right?
4,
so
yep.
How do you manage that with 4
Well,
kids?
mine are actually older now, so it's easier. But when they were, I wrote 2 books when they were,
wow.
And when they were little. They were nonfiction books, but yeah, when they were babies, a couple of them were babies. And as a freelancer, I had to write when I had time, and sometimes it was 10 minutes, sometimes it was 20. I've had 30 minutes. I felt like I'd won the lottery. Right. It is a training thing. You just have to train your brain to not be distracted, right? About when you're there and you only have this much, it can be paralyzing to go, well, I got to check email. No, if you have that time, you can check email while you're, holding a baby teething on your lap. You can. You don't have to have all your brain, but you need all your brain to write.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just had a, with a puppy or a baby or whatever's distracted, you have to be able to, when you have that time, you have to just sit down and just write. And, sometimes I have to start in the middle, sometimes I had to start at the end. It didn't matter. I just had to write something. And just do it consistently, because I think as you probably know, if I don't do it every day, if you don't do something enough for it to become a habit, when you get back to doing it again, it's like you're starting from scratch.
Yes, I'm definitely like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we just were away for a few days, and so I missed like 2 days of my writing time in the mornings. And so I sat down, I think yesterday, after missing two days, and I was like, what am I doing? I caught up on my outline. I caught up on my chapter summaries just to I didn't have a lot of time on Tuesday mornings, so I was like, okay, I have 30 minutes. This is what I'm going to do, because I know I'm not going to get really any more new words here. I'll catch up, and then I'll be able to write today, and that helped. But I was like, man, I've only been out 2 days, and already I'm like losing muscle tone here.
Yeah, that's hard, isn't it? That definitely happens to me too. I feel so rusty, and writing is just so much harder if I've taken a break. Even a few days. But I do that a lot, unfortunately, especially lately, where I do have big gaps in between when I write, and I know that's just making it harder.
It is, and sometimes I find that if you just can turn off all the other distractions, like when I have started getting up early and writing. I'm not really a morning person, but it's where it's because it wasn't getting done. I would say, oh, I'll write, but then I'd leave it until the end of the day. And we all know, for me, some people are like night owls and they can write into the night. For me, my brain is like done by like 8. I was like, okay, stop. Hello. No creativity going past this part. Yeah, so it was just really just kind of, saying, okay, do you want this consistency? Do I want to write more books? If I want to write more books and I want to write them a little faster, I have to dedicate the time to do it. So, and then just not check my email. The only thing I open is Word.
Okay. Wow, you are really convicting me here, Sarah.
But I only do it for like an hour, maybe, an hour and a half in the mornings, because that's all I got. And then I have other work, other freelance work that I have to move on to, and other family obligations and stuff. But yeah, I find that it's been very helpful and actually getting some stuff done, which I feel better about. I feel more like myself when I'm writing. So.
Yeah, right. And it does, that effort and discipline it takes, I think, does pay off when you then have that satisfaction of knowing you're actually making progress and that you're, actually writing, which is what us writers were created to do, right?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know how many times I can say I'm a writer if I'm not actually writing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, not that you don't take a break and you edit and you do, between books and stuff like that. But let's face it, we all have our time wasters. And I just, like I said, about 6 months ago, well, more like 4 or 5 months ago, I was like, okay, I'm tired of my own excuses. So I had a choice. I could either still be tired of my excuses, or I could go to bed early and get up earlier and actually do something about it. So,
wow, I have considered doing that lately, but I don't know that getting up even earlier would probably kill me. So,
yeah, and I said I just told myself I'm going to try this. I'm going to try it for a week and see how I feel, and see if I was actually more productive and felt better about myself and my writing. Anyways, so it worked for me. I mean, I know people, you have to kind of find out what's that happy medium for you.
Right.
And sometimes I think we go through seasons. Right now you're in puppy season, so
exactly.
Enjoy the cuteness.
Right.
I mean, embrace, enjoy. It's not going to last forever. The dog will grow. Kids grow. Your circumstances change. So, kind of have to embrace that. So I think we have time for one more question. So let's talk about what is your favorite of your books that you've written. I think that might be a nice way to end the show.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a tough call, of course, picking your favorite children, right? But
yes. They're all my favorites.
Yeah, exactly. But I'd have to say my favorite of the books I've written so far would be This Shadow, which is book 2 in the Sisters Redeemed series that I mentioned. And it's my favorite for 2 big reasons. One, the heroine's spiritual journey and emotional epiphany actually moved me to tears as I wrote it. I usually try to feel what my characters are feeling as I write it, but hers was just that moment for her. I just really, really felt it with her, and the way it turned out, what the Lord gave me to write, it was just so powerful. It spoke to me so deeply that I was moved to tears as I wrote it, and then again when I read it several times in the editing process, I had to keep reading it. It would keep moving me so much. So there was something about it that resonated really deeply, even with me as the writer, even though I knew what was, coming and stuff. So I think it was just, I won't give a lot away about it, but it's just the truth that God showed her, through the story. His light in devastating darkness that she was going through just really had a huge impact on me, as well as the heroine of the story. And then the second reason, and maybe the biggest reason that this story, that The Shadow is my favorite, is because the hero, Nicanor is his name. He's my favorite hero of all time. And I'm not just saying that because he's my character. He's this great guy, and not in the way you might normally think. He's a tall, dark, and handsome tango dancer who's very brooding and troubled, but he has this sweet tenderness and a really fierce protective streak that the heroine brings out in him, and he's just a really great he has a really great dynamic with the heroine, Oriana, who is his opposite in a lot of ways. She's very cheerful and happy, and he's sort of the opposite for much of the book, but he just was a really fun character to write as well because he had a deep backstory and just a really deep emotional place he was coming from. And, so I love him. And I've heard from readers that they've fallen for Nicanor too. And so he's really a big reason that I love that book best, even just because he was so fun for me to write and to get to know as a character.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a great way to end our show. We all go fall in love with some of Jerusha's characters. Go get her book. So thanks for being on my show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to The Romantic Side of Suspense. I'm your host, Sarah Hamaker, and I've been talking with Jerusha Agen, who imagines danger around every corner, but she writes wonderful, satisfying endings in her romantic suspense books. So stay tuned right after this interview for an excerpt from her Rising Danger romantic suspense.